There comes a time in a man's life when ordinary words cannot explain the weight of delay he has carried. A time when patterns of near success and closed doors become too loud to ignore. You look at your life and know deep within this is not all there is. You pray, you fast, you serve, yet the gates remain shut. Opportunities come close, then disappear. Prophecies hover, but manifestation tarries. You begin to ask, Lord, what is wrong with me? But I came to announce to someone today that the season of delay has expired. This is not a motivation. This is a prophetic verdict. There is a grace that opens doors. There is a grace that enforces access. There is a grace that rewrites timelines. And when that grace comes, it doesn't knock politely. It forces ancient gates to lift. It doesn't ask for permission. It authorizes destiny to speak. Tonight you are not just hearing another sermon. You are standing before the river of divine help. The cycle is about to break. The stagnation is about to end. And the grace for open doors is about to fall. No more delay. The clock of heaven is striking over your life and the time is now. There is a dimension of life where effort and hard work reach their limit, where men have stretched, labored and exhausted the systems of intellect and strength. Yet progress remains a mystery. At that point it becomes evident that life is not governed merely by principles, but by spiritual forces. Grace is that divine advantage that compels realities to align with destiny. Grace is not permission to be passive. It is empowerment to rise above the constraints of the natural. It is God leaning toward a man, placing upon him an ability that is not common to his bloodline or experience. There are people under the sound of my voice who have done all they know to do, yet cycles of stagnation have mocked their sincerity. Not because they were lazy, not because they were unserious, but because the territory they were attempting to conquer was not responding to strength. In this kingdom, we are taught that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise. That means there is an X factor that sponsors advancement. That X factor is called grace. Grace is what makes a man rise beyond predictions. It is the voice that vetoes the limitations of your background. It is the force that says, you may be the last by men's standards, but by divine ordination, you are first. Many destinies are crying, not for information, but for grace. It is possible to know what to do, and still not be able to do it. It is possible to be anointed and still not seen. It is possible to carry value and still remain in the wilderness. What then makes the difference? Grace. It is grace that causes kings to lose sleep until your name is mentioned. It is grace that opens gates that were locked for generations. There are doors that no key in the flesh can open. You can dance before them, cry before them, plead before them, yet they remain closed. But when grace speaks, the doors do not just open, they honor your presence. Because grace does not just open doors, grace brings honor, grace brings speed, grace brings visibility. You must contend for the grace that breaks stagnation. There are realms in God where men rise, not by labor alone, but by alignment with His Spirit, where your history no longer becomes a prophecy of your future, where the embargoes of your ancestry are broken by an encounter, where cycles of almost there are terminated by the impartation of supernatural help. That is what grace does. It accelerates the journey. It compresses time. What would take 10 years in the flesh, grace accomplishes in one instruction. And when that grace lands on a man, even hell cannot resist his rising. When grace begins to speak, the voice of accusation is silenced. When grace comes, the dry bones begin to live. Grace is not an idea. Grace is a living reality, a tangible force, a prophetic atmosphere, and it is available. There are realities in the spirit that cannot be faked. Open doors are one of them. They are not just opportunities. They are divine proclamations that a season has changed. When God opens a door, it is not a physical object moving. It is a verdict in the realm of the spirit. It means access has been granted. It means a territory that was once forbidden has now recognized your arrival. Open doors are not about luck. They are prophetic signals that the hand of God has come upon a man. When a door opens, it is a sign that destiny has remembered you. It is the realm of visibility, influence, and impact. It is when heaven agrees with your assignment and announces you to the nations. But not every door is opened by default. Many are sealed by gates and systems, some demonic, some prophetic, and some dependent on timing. That's why men can be close to greatness, yet never enter. You can be around those already walking through their own doors and still remain outside, because in the realm of the spirit, access is authorization. If it was just about talent, many people would have been enthroned by now. If it was just about sincerity, many destinies would have spoken loudly by now. But there is more. There must be an invitation from heaven that gives you legal ground to move forward. And that invitation is what we call an open door. Every man's life is tied to door. Your rising is tied to a door. Your expansion is tied to a door. Your influence in ministry or business is tied to a door. It is not enough to be ready. You must be granted access. The Bible says, "Behold, I have set before you an open door which no man can shut." That means there are doors that men can shut. But when God opens it, no system, no altar, no voice, no bloodline can shut it. That is the kind of door we are talking about. There are people under the sound of my voice. Your life has been full of movement, with no progress. You have been around doors but never inside them. You have seen opportunities pass you by. You have witnessed others step into seasons that you have cried for. But hear me, the reason why we contend for grace is because grace is what sponsors open doors. When grace comes upon you, it translates your hunger into manifestation. It turns preparation into relevance. It turns obscurity into visibility. Open doors are not about pushing hard. They are about seeing well, because sometimes the door is already open, but blindness keeps a man out. Other times the door is locked, and it will take a prophetic key to open it. You don't force open doors in the kingdom. You discern them, you align with the patterns that provoke them, and then you watch heaven respond. Because every door that opens is a sign that a dimension of God has been revealed. And when you step in, it is not just about your success. It is about a territory experiencing God through your life. That's why doors must open, because your rising is not for show, it is for kingdom. And until that door opens, purpose is delayed, and destinies remain in waiting. There is a mystery behind delays that many never discern. Delay is not just the absence of movement. It is the interruption of divine time. It is the manipulation of seasons to ensure that a man remains behind schedule, no matter how sincere or gifted. In this kingdom, timing is a weapon, and when a man's time is hijacked, his impact is limited. Delay is not always demonic, but when it is, it becomes a system of sabotage. It is a spirit that keeps greatness in the womb. It is the reason why people with prophecy still remain in stagnation. And if you don't deal with delay spiritually, you will explain your life with potential that never becomes performed. There are those who were anointed early but are still irrelevant. There are those who receive dreams from God, but the doors to express them are still closed. You must understand that delay is not just about lateness. It is about disalignment. It is when the calendar of heaven speaks, but the reality on earth refuses to echo it. Delay is when the clock of prophecy is ahead, but the gates of manifestation remain locked. And if a man does not cry out for grace, he can waste 10 years doing what should have taken one encounter. But there is such a thing as the grace that breaks delay. Grace does not only move you forward, it moves you into divine alignment. Grace corrects timing. Grace rewrites seasons. Grace brings the hand of God to make up for lost years. When grace speaks, the years the locusts have eaten are restored. Not just time, but the results that time should have produced. Delay makes a man old in age, but young in results. But when grace comes, there is such a thing called divine speed. It is the compression of events. It is God saying, I will make up for every time you lost. Sometimes delay is not because of sin but because of ignorance. There are doors you will never enter until light comes. Ignorance keeps delay legal. As long as your understanding is small, delay has a legal ground to remain. But when light comes and grace is invoked, the system of delay begins to crash. The walls begin to fall. The yokes begin to break. That is why teaching and impartation must go together, because what you do not understand, you cannot conquer, and what you do not receive by the Spirit you cannot activate. Some delays are rooted in covenants, bloodline patterns, ancient altars, voices that speak against progress. Until the blood of Jesus is enforced, and the power of grace invoked, those voices remain legal gatekeepers. But there is a generation rising, with understanding, a people who will no longer negotiate with delay, a people who will declare, no more stagnation, no more wasted years, no more delay. Grace is not an opinion, it is a weapon. It is the voice that rebukes delay and commands movement. It is the reason why a man can sleep as a prisoner and wake up as a king. That's what grace does. It breaks the chains of delay and calls you into your season. In the realm of the Spirit, nothing just happens. Realities are birthed, not wished. Realities are commanded, not get. There is a kind of atmosphere that provokes open doors, a prophetic climate, a divine configuration that aligns the heavens to favor a man. Without that atmosphere, even legitimate desires remain unanswered. It is not enough to want breakthrough. There must be an environment that calls it forth. Spiritual atmospheres are wombs. They carry within them the potential to usher in new seasons. When the right atmosphere is set, doors don't just open, they are compelled to respond. There are people who have been laboring in the wrong environment. An atmosphere of bitterness, dishonor, carnality and fear can keep doors permanently shut. The presence of God is not a suggestion. It is the atmosphere where the impossible becomes normal. The atmosphere of His glory is the platform for divine possibility. Men rise not just because of what they carry, but because of where they dwell on. You can be anointed, but in the wrong climate. You can be gifted, but surrounded by dishonor. And the spiritual realm will honor the environment over your intention. The first atmosphere that provokes open doors is His presence. Where the King is, the gates must respond. His presence is not a feeling. It is a system of access. It is where men are authorized to command results beyond their natural level. There are doors that intelligence cannot open. There are gates that networking cannot break. But one encounter with the presence of the King, and the prison becomes a palace. That is not motivation. It is spiritual law. The atmosphere of divine presence changes everything. Then there is the atmosphere of yieldedness. God does not force open doors where there is no alignment. Many doors remain shut, not because they are locked, but because the posture of the heart is wrong. You don't enter certain seasons until you die to sin. There is a posture in the Spirit where your desires submit to His will, and at that moment, the heavens recognize you as ready. That atmosphere of submission is a magnet for divine openings. When a man is broken, heaven opens. When pride dies, destiny begins. Honor is another part of that atmosphere. The culture of honor is what unlocks what people carry. Many doors are tied to men, and those men will remain silent until honor pulls their. You can pray, fast and shout, but if you dishonor the vessel carrying your next level, you will remain in cycles. Doors are sensitive to atmosphere. You don't insult a gate and expect it to open. You honor it, discern it, and then the grace it carries flows free. Honor is not flattery. It is the recognition and celebration of value. When the right spiritual climate is in place, you don't have to struggle. Things begin to align. People are drawn to you without knowing why. Systems begin to respond to you. Delays begin to break. Prophecies begin to manifest. It is not magic. It is alignment with divine atmospheres. A man under the right climate can do in 1 year what others could not do in 10. Because in the kingdom, it is not just about doing. It is about where you are standing and what is surrounding you. In this kingdom,
We rise not only by knowledge, but by encounters. Not everything you need for your lifting can be taught. Some things must be received. There are dimensions of grace that no lecture can give you. You can listen to 1,000 sermons and still remain bound if impartation is absent. Grace is not just transferred through words. It is transferred through spirits. It is imparted by alignment, by hunger, and by proximity to fire. When God wants to shift a man's life, he sends a man carrying what you lack. The oil you need is already resting on someone, and impartation is God's system of distribution. There are doors in life that will never open just because you read books. There are seasons that will never come just because you pray. You must come under the influence of grace that is higher than your current level. Impartation is how mantles are preserved and extended. It is the reason why a man who was ordinary yesterday suddenly becomes a wonder today. You saw them last month, and nothing was remarkable, but something came upon them. Something was transferred. A fire, a mantle, a dimension of God. That is what grace does when it is imparted. It makes ordinary men carry extraordinary possibilities. You must discern the systems of impartation. It is not always loud. Sometimes it happens in worship. Sometimes it happens in silence. But the proof is that your results change. You begin to command attention. You begin to walk in favor. You begin to access mysteries that were once hidden. That is what happens when grace touches your life. It rewires your spiritual climate. It shifts the atmosphere around you. And suddenly, what was hard becomes easy. What was delayed begins to move. What was closed begins to open. Some of you are one impartation away from your next season, one genuine transfer away from stepping into the fullness of prophecy. Because grace is not just a feeling. It is tangible. You can carry it. It can rest upon you. It can follow you. And when it does, everything about your life changes. You become a mobile portal. You become a representation of what others are still hoping for. People will begin to wonder what changed, but you will know something came upon you, something ancient, something from God, something you didn't earn, but it found you because your hunger created a vacuum. That's why you must never trivialize the laying on of hands, the power of impartation, the mystery of hunger, because every time grace is about to lift a man, it comes through these doors. You don't just hear grace, you receive. You don't just admire results, you align to the system that produces them. Impartation is not about making you emotional, it's about equipping you with what your destiny demands. There are realms of favor, speed, revelation and power that you will never access until you come under that. And when it begins to fall, you don't debate it, you receive. You don't analyze it, you align, because that grace you receive today can speak for you in places your voice has never entered. We have come to a prophetic intersection where the dealings of God demand a response. The grace for open doors is not a myth. It is a tangible dimension of the Spirit that terminates delay, announces new seasons, and causes men to rise beyond natural limitation. Every locked gate, every invisible barrier, and every force of resistance bows when grace is activated. Whether it is cycles of stagnation, doors that refuse to open, or timelines that seemed wasted, grace comes to rewrite the story. And when it comes, it does not consult your past to determine your future. It is the verdict of mercy over judgment, favor over struggle, access over rejection. This is not just another message. It is a divine decree. No more delay. From today, step into open doors, walk in divine speed, manifest prophecy. As you rise from these words, may your steps be ordered into prepared places. May doors that were once shut open at your presence. May grace rest upon you like a mantle, speaking for you in territories where your voice is unknown. You will no longer be late. You will no longer be left behind. You will no longer circle the same mountains. Walk boldly, Grace has gone ahead of you. Thank you for opening your heart to receive. May your testimony be loud, and may your lifting be undeniable. Good luck, and God bless you richly.